Good afternoon and good morrow to thee, my loyal subjects. My name is MiAh the King. Yes, the King. What am I the king of? The kingdom of nothing in all its glory. Today we're taking a look at a game that came out earlier today on Steam called Punk Wars. I'm falling a bit behind on this one because I had to take care of some important stuff with my family today, but better late than never, yes? So here we go. Developed by Strategy Forge SA and published by Jujubee SA and Strategy Forge SA, the game is described as follows on Steam. Our civilization has fallen. From the ashes, 4 new powers emerge. Immerse yourself in a combat-heavy twist on a classic turn-based 4X strategy where Steam, Steel, Atom, and Dieselpunk corporations clash to spread their technology and the way of life. By the way, I've been very sick, my kid's been very sick, and it's a coughing lungs kind of thing, so if this sounds a bit off, I do apologize. I'm trying to deal with that, but I still wanted to put out this video. So, let's dive into this together and see what it has in store for us and if it's worth that $20 price tag. So first up is we're going to go over the positives because those are what stuck out to me first. At number 1, we've got the graphics. Now while they aren't the best that I've ever seen, they are indeed serviceable. They work here. I do have some problems, but I'll get into those in a moment. For now, what I wanted to bring attention to here is the actual art design itself. While I may not agree with the direction that it's going in, what I can say is that it's pretty well done here. They had an idea and they went for it. Not too much, not too little, not slacking, but not overcompensating. It's a fine balance that they've managed to achieve here. In fact, the only real problem I have is the overall color scheme that they've chosen to go with. Now, I know it's post-apocalyptic and all that, so it's supposed to look like that, but it's still ugly as sin to look at. You know, you can't just brush over that. Not saying the quality is bad, just the path they chose to go with it. All maps and biomes are pretty much the same color, red, gray, or different variations of tan. Very little in the ways of different biomes and whatnot, but still. I'm not saying it's wrong because it is a post-apocalyptic game, but I can't just hide that it looks ugly either. But it was all drawn very well, and at least it's realistic with a lot of attention to detail, so that's why I wanted to make mention of it. Number 2. The gameplay itself is rather easy to understand. While it's not the best gameplay ever, and I'll go into that later, the playing it itself is easy to get into. It's not rocket science, you know, you need certain resources to do this or that. Here they are, and here's how to get them. You need to build soldiers and base structures, so here they are, and how to get them. What do they do? Well, here it is. Overall, it just felt easy and smooth and nice and well done to the point that I myself found it pretty easy to play the game, to understand it, and to get into it. Number 3, the game's stability. Now, this was for me, alright? I don't know how other people are doing, but for me, the game was pretty stable. No super long loading screens, no screen tearing, no freezing, stuttering, or glitching, no crashes or anything super awful like that. Now, this can obviously vary between different people and gaming devices, but as for me, I found the game running fairly smooth, pretty stable for almost the entire time I was playing it. So, there you go. Number 4, the overall idea here. The ingenuity, the innovation that I like to see in video games. This is it. It's a 4X game, yes, I get that, and that kind of game isn't new. However, the idea that they chose to go with, steampunk and post-apocalyptic, are both something we haven't really seen a lot of in strategy games, or in 4X games. So, giving us a kind of civilization game, but making it post-apocalyptic is pretty darn cool, so I gotta give them kudo points on their idea. I do love the idea of this. I just wish it angled more towards civilization and less towards other games of this type. And this next point here, it's not a positive point, but it did deserve a special mention. I love that title screen. It's fluid, looks and feels great, and the words fade away, giving you a panning, flying feeling of looking at the world of this game. Cool, unique, original, and fancy. Love that title screen. But, unfortunately, that's all I've got for the positives. Up next, we're going to go over the negatives, but before we go further into those, I'd like to politely request to all my wonderful viewers out there that if you're enjoying watching this video or finding it informative, I would greatly appreciate you doing whatever you can to support my channel. How, you might ask? Well, all you need to do is hit the like button, leave a comment, maybe share the video or subscribe to my channel, or maybe hit that bell. Any of these work wonders and help me out a lot, and I mean a lot, while it only takes you guys a few seconds of your time. So please consider supporting my small channel today. Thank you. Okay, so first up for the negatives I've got here is the sound design and music quality, or the sound quality and music design. Honestly, it doesn't really matter how you title it. I got issues with the sounds and musics here. The music is practically non-existent. When it is there, it's so boring and uncreative, I barely noticed it or recognized it or remembered it at all. It didn't help pull me in. It didn't help set the move. It didn't really do anything all that great and was just kind of barely there. As for the sound effects, well, they are mostly not there either. I mean, yeah, sure, every now and then you get a little bit of a sound effect for a soldier marching or gun firing or a steam coming off a building or something, but it's almost like they just use the same generic sound effects for those that you hear in tons of other games like this. I was very disappointed with the sound and music quality here. Number 2, the game feels like it's unfinished. It feels incomplete. I could have sworn this game was in early access while I was playing it, but when I went to the Steam store page, I saw that it's apparently fully finished. But it feels so incomplete when playing it. I mean that in so many ways, but one example I'll use here is the combat animations. They suck. They are absolutely terrible. I was having no fun at all with the combat in this game, and I feel like that should be the main thing I'm having fun with here. I can't see any missiles going back and forth, and I want to be clear, when I talk about missiles, I'm talking about the generic definition of missiles, as in bullets, arrows, or missiles themselves. So there was no sign of that whatsoever. But not only that, the melee characters, the melee units, aren't doing any charging, they're not rushing into the enemy units, they're not doing any animations, and you can only see an enemy's life by clicking on them. There was no way for your units to heal without a specialized medic unit, barely any commands you could give your units, like you can't tell your scouts to automatically scout the map out, you can't tell them to explore. I could keep going, but I'd be here all day, and I like to think that I made my point already. Number 3, the tutorial is pretty bad here. I do appreciate that they put one in because they didn't have to. Like anybody, technically they don't have to, but I appreciate it. I can see that they tried to take the theme of the game and mix it into the style of the tutorial, but it just didn't work out very well here. I barely followed along and barely figured out what I was doing, and for the first time in a while I felt myself bored and annoyed with the tutorial. Also, it didn't teach me everything. I was learning, playing, trying to find the fun in this game when all of a sudden the tutorial was like, okay, and now we're done, good luck, and kicked me back to the main menu. Anyway, the point is it got me started on the wrong foot, and I had to learn the rest of the game myself. Number 4, the game's user interface is just a bit weird to me, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about the gameplay overall in this as well. But they use Roman numerals as different, paths of building, which doesn't really make any sense to me at all. I've never seen that before. The button to end turn and the arrows that are down there with that and whatnot don't really make much sense to me. I mean, you know how when you've got a unit who's sitting around doing nothing in Civilization and you click a button and so it takes you to that unit so you don't waste the turn or the time? They do that in this one, but for literally everything. Your main buildings, your research buildings, your barracks buildings, all these buildings that create units and whatnot, as if they're units. If they're not being used to currently build something, the game is acting like they are units who aren't being... It's just weird. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you don't, please ask in the comments and I'll verify what I'm talking about here. But it was just ridiculous to me that I had to hit a button. I had to put my buildings to sleep so that way I could not worry about them not building anything right now because I didn't have the resources to build anything right now. Does that make any more sense? And there were just a bunch of other things in the game design that just felt odd to me. A building equivalent to a barracks can only build one troop at a time, so there's no troop queue. Units can't attack and move, so you can't tell them to go over there and attack that guy. No, you gotta move them next to the guy who could move in the amount of time it takes you to get there. And then only when you're next to them can you actually tell them to attack. So it's two separate options rather than just one. Or actions, not options, sorry. The game gives you builders who only build once and then disappear forever. They say you can only build in your borders, then tell you how to expand your borders, and then even after supposedly expanding my borders, like they showed me, still couldn't build in these areas. Everything was just a little bit off and just felt really awkward and like they didn't belong or like they were just confused or they mixed it up with something else. So the whole idea with the interface and the in-depth gameplay just kind of really felt awkward to me. So those are the main points of both the positives and the negatives that I could think of at the time of playing and at the time of writing the script. Is the game perfect? No. Is the game good? Not really. But is the game bad? Also, not really. But is the game terrible? Also, no. It's in the middle. It's average, but not just average. It's painfully average. And you might be asking yourself, well, what's the difference between average and painfully average? Well, average is something you shrug at and say, yeah, it's not bad, not good, I can take it or leave it. Maybe I'll play it, maybe I won't. But painfully average is almost the same thing, except it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You find yourself wanting to think it doesn't exist, and that you never met it before. Technically, you can't call it a bad game, because it does hit those check marks to make it an average game. But personally, you can't say it's above average, and you can't stand to look at it. So it's more painful at being average than a normal average game. I know it's confusing. Obviously, I'm pulling this shit out of my ass to make a point, but I still hope that that point comes across. Now, I know I didn't mention things like how the game has these little pop-up screens with close-up camera angles and interesting information on units, or about how there are 4 different factions you can play as with various differences in playstyle, but I felt that those were nice but not game changers, which is why they weren't mentioned in the points earlier. But here's the thing. My final thoughts on this whole thing. The game's idea is unique and original, and I love it. But the actual application of this idea into video game form was very poorly done, in my own personal opinion. I was very bored and very annoyed with the game. And is it worth $20? Hell no. Is it worth your time? Well, that depends. Now, if you're desperate for a brand new 4X game, then sure, I guess. Otherwise, no. Go find something else. Other than its idea of being post-apocalyptic steampunk game, it offers nothing new, nothing exceptional, and nothing worth your time. Not even quality animations, not even quality descriptions, not even quality units. I mean, it doesn't offer anything exceptional. If the combat was really good, then, maybe I could look past everything else, because that's what you're mostly going to be doing in the game is the combat. But the combat is terrible, so why would I care any more than that? I mean, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate from my negative viewpoint here, but I just can't see the appeal. I mean, I do like that it has a campaign, but even the campaign is just kind of more of scenarios with very little guidance. Every time you find ruins, you can explore them, kind of get some events happening, but it's not like you get to make choices, so they're falling behind in that regard, because of that, they're not really that important. They're not that in-depth, so it's kind of just like a shrug in the middle of all the other stuff you're doing, so it doesn't really matter. They could take it out and they'd lose nothing. I've noticed that there isn't as much tactical options as I would like. Very few things you can actually plan out, organize, strategize, and so on and so forth. Overall, I don't think it's that good of a game. I don't think it's that good of a civilization game. I don't think it's that good of a 4X game. I don't think it's that good of a strategy or a combat game. I think they give you the minimum of everything you would want or need in a game like this, but all you're doing the whole time you're playing is thinking about how badly you wish you were playing one of the far better 4X games that are out there right now. My advice is to just avoid this one, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think it's worth a $20 price tag, and I don't think it's worth your time. It doesn't offer me anything that a buttload of other 4X games offer me for a way better experience. And yes, Humankind might be more expensive. The Total War games might be more expensive. Civilization games might be more expensive. But they offer you quality stuff. This is the poor man's Civilization game that was half-assed. That's the best way I can put it. For the little that it does offer me, it's not good enough to justify me spending the money or the time on it. I was bored, confused, and annoyed the majority of the time I was playing. My advice is to move on and look for another one. If you absolutely have to try it out for yourself, then fine, go ahead. Don't play it more than 2 hours. And if you happen to enjoy it, then you know what? I'm happy for you, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm sorry it's not better. I'm sorry I can't give it a better review. But what you see is what you get. If you're not finding this video interesting based on the gameplay footage, and if those negatives are too bad, or if those positives aren't good enough, then as I said, you'd be better off looking for a 4X game somewhere else. Alright, everyone? So that's all the time I got for this video. Sorry it was a bit late. Sorry if it sounds a bit awful. Like I said, I'm recovering from being really sick, so I'm really sorry for that. But thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.